Well, hi everybody, it's Andy Feld, the founder of Gift 631 and the author and presenter of the What Winners Do live events and virtual programs. It is a real pleasure and privilege today to be joined by two incredible human beings, two people who've made an absolutely massive impact on my life, and that is Richard West and Jim Brandon. And it's really exciting that we're connecting up from Australia to the UK to Florida in the United States of America. And Richard, Jim and I will be talking across a series of programs on a number of subjects. We'll be talking about culture. We'll be talking about teams and what really makes a great team. We'll be talking about communication. We'll be talking about the essence of leadership. We'll be talking about motivation and many other subjects. And if there's a subject that you really want us to cover, then please do get in touch. So without further ado, I'd first of all like to hand over to Jim Brandon over there in Florida. And Jim and I have known each other for over 20 years now and had many fantastic experiences together. And I've learned a tremendous amount from Jim. So Jim, it'd be absolutely fabulous if you could just share a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your fantastic story.
Yeah, Andy, phenomenal being back with you. Really enjoying it from sunny Florida. I left my surfboard outside the door, so I'll jump right in. I always consider myself just a kid from New York. I was the big city boy and just had bright-eyed, bushy tails, wanted to do something. And I found sport, and sport was just something that I fell in love with. And first of all, again, it was my first love. And after that, I realized I could do some things with it. And that means taking myself out of my situation, with humble beginnings. And it got me a free education, university education. But then again, it allowed me to make some money, too. I was able to turn professional. I got drafted by Utah Jazz in the NBA and went to play for Boston for a short period of time. And then I gambled across the pond and started playing in places like Europe and the Middle East and things of that nature. Really enjoyed my time and got to learn many things that kind of developed my personality.
And Jim, what would you say? I mean, I've seen you, obviously, clips of you as a player, but obviously I saw a lot of you as a coach. And what was it, do you believe, about you that enabled you to achieve the success that you did and make such a big impression on others?
Well, I went through, professional playing. I coached. I did some commentary for, likes of Sky Sports and BBC, sport. And, one of the things that I think that a lot of great leaders should know is that, don't reinvent the wheel. I learned from a lot of people. I always had my antenna up. I realized that there were brilliant people around me wherever I went, and I'm not ashamed to learn from them. So everywhere I went, I picked something from the people around me, something unique that they did that I could add to my repertoire. And that really helped me along the way and helped me certainly in my coaching and managing career in sport and helping others be successful.
Yeah, and I certainly believe throughout my long corporate career before I set up Gift 631, one of my philosophies, if you like, was I just spent a whole career studying highly successful people. And I just had this little framework for myself that I would learn what they did, I would copy it, and then I'd add my own 10% winning edge. And I'm a fundamental believer that ego is the enemy of achievement, and all the answers are out there. We just need to find great people, understand what they're doing, learn the lessons, and then integrate it into the way that we live our life. And you've certainly been an incredible mentor and teacher and friend to myself, as has Richard West. And I met Richard a little bit after yourself, and we actually met down in the RBS Williams Center very, very briefly. Richard made a quick connection at the end of a corporate day we were both working on. And from that, a tremendous relationship and friendship has blossomed as well. So Richard, if I could pass to you and maybe you could just share with everyone a little bit about your story as well and why do you really do what you do?
Yeah, hi Andy, hi Jim, great to catch up like this, and the first of many, as you said in your opening piece there. Yeah, today I work as a high performance business coach. I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I also do a lot of mentoring online with much younger people than me. The grey hair seems to have overtaken the dark hair these days. But my career goes back a long, long way. When I left college, I wasn't particularly academically too bright. I mean, I could have been, but I perhaps in the early days didn't work hard enough. And I got a break and got involved in the automotive industry. And the company I went to work for were also a Ford dealership that had a rally team, an off-road forest rallying team. And within literally hours of seeing these cars up close, you know, and seeing the guys working on them and the team spirit that existed within that organisation, I was absolutely hooked and convinced myself I would be a really good rally driver. But sadly, my ambitions were completely way out of kilter. And after an accident and writing off my rally car, it was suggested by some very, very senior people in rallying that perhaps I should get involved in the world of PR. I worked for Ford, Datsun and Audi on the World Rally Championships. And then I got my break. In 1984, I made contact with the Williams Formula One team. I wrote personally to Frank Williams, and I was taken on as a junior sponsorship coordinator. And I really wasn't with Williams very long. I was headhunted by Ron Dennis of McLaren. I was there throughout the glory years of the 80s, including 88 when we won 15 out of 16 races. I had a short sabbatical, 3 years. I went off for Jaguar and competed in World Sports Cars, marketing director of the World Championship Jaguar team that won both Le Mans and the American Daytona 24 Hours. But then in 92, I got called back into Williams to really head up their marketing and sponsorship division. And I had a very talented team of young guys and girls around me. We raised very large sums of money. In my total career, I've raised over $160 million of commercial sponsorship. And really it went from there to the point where in the late 90s, I got the opportunity to set up my own business. I worked alongside Michael Schumacher at Ferrari for that season, working for one of the sponsors. And it really blossomed from there. I did more and more public speaking. And having worked with these incredibly talented guys and women in the motorsport industry, I started to pick up lessons and things that I could use in business. And the last 20 years have just flown by. As well, you know, I've traveled throughout the world. I've now worked with over 150 of the world's leading corporations. And I continue to do so and enjoy every single second of it. I truly feel blessed because it's not very often you never feel like you're going to work. Every day, what I do is just a joy. And I love imparting my experiences and my knowledges from far greater people than myself to those people who want to better themselves.
Yeah, and I'm a fundamental believer that relationships are the foundation of everything. And when I see someone like yourself, Richard, but also Jim, you know, you just see your ability to create and generate long-standing relationships. And I think that's a real art that you've certainly helped me really think about how I take my relationship management skills to the next level. So it's something I'll always be immensely grateful for. And if I could just ask each of you one final question. If there's one person throughout your amazing careers who's really inspired you. Now, I know this is a very, very challenging question because you've both worked around some amazing people. If there's just one person and one lesson from that person you'd love to leave the audience with today, you know, what would that be? Jim, maybe I could turn back to yourself first, just to perhaps leave something out there for the audience that we can pick up on in later programs. But is there someone out there who you went, yeah, that was just a great person to be around, and this is something I learned from them?
Well, there's a couple. Probably from a kid's point of view, I idolized Muhammad Ali, who was one of the most confident athletes of all time, and just the way that he had flair and dedication and performance and all those things together. You know, he just brought all that together, charisma and self-belief that was incredible. How he believed in himself, even in the sight of possible failure. He didn't shrink. He stayed strong and stayed confident and believed in himself. So that's something that happened for me, certainly. You know, as a kid growing up. One of the other people, I don't know if you see my pictures just over my shoulders here, was a guy I played with years and years ago. And I'll bring it a little closer in case you can see it. This is me years ago when I played with Boston for just a short period of time. There's a guy they called Larry Bird. And Larry Bird was amazing to me because what he did was he was the most unassuming superstar I ever met. He was really down to earth. And the way he dealt with people was really, really positive. I never felt I was around, you know, the greatest player in the world, which he was at that time when I played with him. He just treated everyone like a friend, a colleague, with respect is equal to he respects himself. So that's pretty cool. And I've met people after that who did that very well in corporate. I think, Andy, you're very good at that yourself. You always made people feel comfortable around him. And it allowed us to get closer to him. So when we performed, we felt like it was one team and one, the musketeer factor that I talk about all the time. So those are probably two of the people that I felt, first of all, as far as admiration, the other one as far as comfortability and performance with, that comes to mind when I talk about who influenced me the most.
Brilliant. Humility and authenticity. I'd written down those two names. I was pretty sure you'd go there. So that's really interesting.
I hope you like my afro that I'm wearing. The pictures. You didn't believe I had that.
And Richard, just to finish, how about yourself?
As you say, Andy and Jim said, it's very difficult to pick out just one or two, because we've all been very fortunate to be around enormously talented people. I think if I look back, really, the two guys who I aspire to and I learned so much from. First one was Ron Dennis. When I went to join McLaren in late '84, Ron had a vision for the future, which I've never experienced in a manager or a director before. He knew where McLaren was going from the second he took it over in '82. And when I joined in '84, he was already talking about a future technology centre, which exists to this day in Woking now with almost 3,500 employees. And Ron was an absolute stickler for attention to detail. But the important thing was you learned so much from it. I pride myself on my research and all the other things I do prior to going into events. I have to credit Ron with giving me those skills. And I think from a motivational person, the gentleman on the wall behind me in the yellow helmet, the late great Ayrton Senna, 3-time Brazilian world champion. Obviously, I was very aware of Ayrton when he burst on the scene in '84. I was hugely privileged to work with him in '88 alongside Alan Prost when we won 15 out of 16 Grand Prix. And this was a guy that just, he was so inspiring. And secondly, trust was his mantra. You had to have trust, and he had to trust you. And once you got that, he was an incredibly focused, generous, sometimes difficult, because he was such a perfectionist guy. But then again, in '93, of course, when we got the chance to sign him for the '94 season at Williams, we renewed our relationship. And it was a bit like you and Jim and I. We pick up the phone or we do a broadcast like this, and it's like we haven't been apart, although we haven't seen each other for a while. Here we are talking as mates and friends and colleagues. And in '94, when Ayrton arrived back at the team at Williams and took the place of the lead driver, all of those things that he had matured. And tragically, we lost him, as you know, on the 1st of May that year in a terrible accident, terrible weekend at the Imola Grand Prix. But if ever I find my motivation lacking, I either just look at that picture behind me, or I look back at some photographs, or even sometimes just put my hand on the helmet behind me. And it does something to me. It's about inspiring people, and that trust was something I learned. If you've got that in business, you go a long, long way. Yeah,
I think that's a big vision with an attention to detail and an absolute trust in those around you. I think those are really big themes, which again, we'll dig into through this series. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. This has been an absolutely fantastic introduction to two amazing human beings who've made, as I said, a really meaningful impact on my life. So I want to thank both Richard West and Jim Brandon for their contribution. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to the rest of this series. So take care, gents, and please keep winning.
Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate it, brother.
Stay safe. Bye now.